Let's go straight to the Brian Foley Law Hotline. Jonathan Hutton, host of Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow, 3 to 6 Eastern on Outkick.com. What's going on, Jonathan? How you been, buddy?
Nuno, great to be back on with you, man. Hope things are well. Not much of a background here, but I do have a little lighting set up. That's right.
Well, it seems legit, man. It looks like what's the name of that podcast I watch?
It's not bad.
It looks good, man. Hey, so let's talk about last night's game. You and I were texting back and forth during it. Just Michigan living up to what they do. Washington with some missed opportunities.
Yeah, and overall, I thought it's a sloppy game, right? It was not what we expected or I expected from Washington. But then again, the Michigan defense, give them credit, and hey, give the Michigan players throughout this entire season credit. I have hesitated to do that at times. I'm consciously trying to be self-aware about it because I'm judging them based on the coaching staff, specifically Harbaugh, what he did or didn't know, and McCarthy and company. While could they have known? Sure. Do we have any way of just absolutely saying they've got to know? No, absolutely not. And Harbaugh, there's no way to me that he wasn't involved in it. But yeah, the players, for all they knew, they were doing everything that any other team would be doing at any level. So I think they, with all the distraction, even to start the season prior to everything coming out in October, I thought they handled themselves very well, considering that the veteran presence showed out in this college football playoff.
Jonathan, do you think we'll look at Michigan differently in a few years, few months, considering the scandal and the more information that comes out, and we'll see where Harbaugh ends up? Just, you think we'll look at it, or no, it'll be like USC in 2004?
Yeah, I'm going to remember them as champions because while they may vacate wins a couple of years from now, that moment last night absolutely happened. It was allowed to happen last night. And I think we look back on this and remember this whole saga as the NCAA having an opportunity to step up, and instead, maybe for the last time, maybe one of the last times we saw the NCAA not do anything. We watched and heard Harbaugh and Michigan call their bluff. The Big Ten stepped in on a sportsmanship violation. The NCAA can't even type up the notice of allegations yet. And we need a commissioner of college football. I think this is what I'll look back on this as. Michigan wins the title, and no matter what happens years from now, because we watched, whether you care or you don't, about the whole Stallions saga. It's a football program, the coach, the university, who dared the governing body to quote-unquote prove it. And the head coach is proclaiming innocence for the entire program on the podium. So what do we learn here? It's power versus the appearance of power. And Harbaugh has it. So much so that if he was in on Stallions and sign stealing and that mission, he has so much power that no one threw him under the bus. Past, present, coaches that are, stood up and he didn't answer the door for, didn't answer the phone for. Stallions himself cost him his job. He didn't roll. Instead, Michigan is offering him a 10-year reported $125 million contract in front of him. And, oh, by the way, it doesn't change the fact that Ryan Day is still going to be going to next season on the hot seat. The Big Ten is going to tout a national champion and their runner-up, Sharon Moore, who, absolutely knew that Stallions and what he was up to. He's standing right next to him on the sideline. He's going to be the next Michigan head coach when Harbaugh heads to the NFL. And then there's the NCAA, more or less representing the figurehead, much like the royal family. I laugh at it because I know that's going to be the reaction, because I think it's a lot like the way we look at sports gambling right now. And you mentioned Reggie Bush, $10,000. Let's look around and see the cars some of these guys are pulling up to on campuses now. The NCAA, by the way, still cashed those checks last night. Every team that was represented in those conferences cashes those checks, regardless if Michigan or whoever is representing them.
How different does last night play out if it was Alabama and not Michigan? Does it feel the same?
For me, it does, yeah. But I don't think it plays out during the season the same way. Look at it from this perspective. The entire college football universe, except for the SEC or anyone associated with ESPN, ACC, they believe that ESPN and the SEC are in on it, that they're out to get them. There was a lot of not trusting things when Sankey was trying to get things done a few years back, or college football realignment or anything like that. I think the sentiment nationally would be way different than what we saw at Michigan, because I don't necessarily believe that Sankey would have stepped in and done anything the way Petiti did. And I don't think it was that harsh of a penalty. I mean, it was no different than what he received at the beginning of the season from Michigan, where he's coaching during the week. He's not coaching on game day. I mean, that's not affecting them early in the year. Turns out it didn't affect them late in the year. I'm not so sure Sankey would have done the same thing. He would have let things play out. And I think the public perception of this, Nuno, is that Michigan served their penalty. And I mean, I think the 30,000-foot view, the Big Ten stepped in, they suspended him. He accepted it eventually based on new evidence, and then they dropped their investigation. We're still waiting on the NCAA, but I mean, who talks about Kansas and Big Bill Self from 2018 or 2017? No one, because it's long forgotten, and we won't forget the championship last night.
What's next for Kalen DeBoer? That team's going to look different. They were heavy into the portal. I mean, somebody at some point is going to call him. We know that. Does he stay there? Do you think? Well, I mean, there's no options right now. We'll see what happens with Michigan. But just how does that play out?
I think from DeBoer's perspective, first and foremost, he's going to get paid, right? Like he's making a little over $4 million. He had an extension last year, and his current contract that he extended last year runs through 2028 or 29. He's like 45th in coaching salary right now. That's good for 7th in the Pac-12. Top 25 highest paid coaches, they all make at least $6 million. He's going to earn more than that. They're already discussing the contract. He didn't want to really talk numbers during the season. It's time to get paid, man. And I think as far as what's next for the program, I mean, as long as he is the head coach, the Huskies can remain in the national championship picture. They've got plenty of talent that is out the door. But they have plenty of talent that's coming in. Transfer portal is real, and I think DeBoer is going to end up reaping the rewards of that with guys like Will Rogers, who's stepping in at quarterback.
What do you think about Alabama? Kevin Steele's retiring. The assistant coaches there, they change often. It's not like this is new. We heard DJ Durkin's a name that could potentially go there, or at least on social media.
Yeah.
What do you think Bama ends up doing?
I mean, I think it's going to be the guy that Kiffin already presumed was already calling plays in Travaris Robinson. Mm-hmm. I mean, the secondary coach has been the defensive coordinator before, and the players like him. I'm sitting there thinking, well, the perception is he's already he's primed for it. He's in-house, and I mean, I think his contract's up too. So I mean, you just elevate him to that position. However, there are plenty of coaches right now, like Zach Arnett, for instance, who makes sense, but Saban can go out and get whoever he wants, right? You can go out and make that happen. But I think from within, it's him, or Charlie Strong is one of the guys behind the scenes there for him, 63 or 64 now probably. I think they stay in-house for this, and I think it's Robinson who is in the perfect spot to step into that role.
So Washington obviously dipped into the portal quite a bit. Ole Miss has dipped into the portal quite a bit. A&M this year having to go into the portal quite a bit. Do you think too much portal? I mean, not Colorado level of portal, but too much portal is a bad thing?
I go back and forth on this because on one hand, the transfer portal has really helped college basketball. I want to point that out because the tournament was as good as I've ever seen it last year, and I think we're seeing it play out right now in the regular season, the carryover. I hope it gets to that for the college football playoff when we expand to 12. The detriment is what's going to happen to teams 25 through 60 and those that are think they're competing, but they're not really competing for the 12-team playoff. And, they're going to lose players. They're already losing players. They were already being recruited prior to the transfer portal being as wide open as it is, quite frankly. I look around and think of it this way. As far as parity is concerned, we're as close to the best version of that we've seen. I don't think we're close like we are in college hoops, where you can get the sixth man at Arkansas and he can go to a Sun Belt school and take them to an unbeaten championship and make a run to the Sweet 16. Now that team can make a run to the Final Four. We saw it last year. I don't think we see that in college football, but I do think it elevates teams like Ole Miss. Ole Miss is already being mentioned for the college football playoff and a national championship contender based on the portal. And that's with them losing what they've done with Judkins, who goes to Ohio State. So, I mean, I like it. I like it from the no dog in the fight type perspective. I wouldn't like it if I'm a fan. I wouldn't like it if I'm a coach. I wouldn't like it if I'm a teammate, because it's ruining the bowl season as well. All the opt-outs, the timing of it, it's not conducive for everything you work for and strive for throughout the season. I miss the pageantry of bowl season. Yep, I didn't really the headline of bowl season outside of New Year's Day and beyond was the Pop-Tart mascot. That's ridiculous. Like, that got more coverage because it was social media relevant than the actual play on the field, and it used to be way different than that. Maybe they change the timing, maybe they don't. I know kids want to enroll, and I know coaches want them there for spring. They've got to do something about the opt-outs, because they're opting out to leave after helping their team achieve where they're going in December.
So I think it was Thursday where the Pat McAfee comments came out, where he called the high-ranking official there at ESPN a rat. Yeah. I went to your show immediately. You guys were talking about it. Were you surprised that McAfee was on the air yesterday?
I was, yeah. Well, I'm not surprised he was on the air. I thought if he was not going to be on ESPN, he would just go straight to YouTube, because he still owns that portion of his show. So he's got that leverage. I'm surprised that Aaron Rodgers is going to be on his show today, quite frankly. That's after ESPN has apologized. That's after McAfee, prior to this whole thing, went and apologized on Rodgers' behalf. Norby Williamson is an executive at ESPN, and they have Burke Magnus, his boss, the president of content in Indianapolis, at the Colts-Texan game, the night after McAfee calls Norby Williamson, who's been with ESPN for 40 years for the linear side of their product, and is part of their success, calls him a rat, says that he's out to undermine what they're doing, giving false information on ratings 12 hours before a press release was supposed to come out where McAfee's praising management, calls him a rat. And his boss is posing with a photo with McAfee the next night. And then yesterday, he's in Houston, where he opens up and doubles down again. I mean, that's the surprise to me, is that not that there is a underlying sentiment of I don't like so and so at ESPN. I think if you talk to people that work there, talent, hosts, there's going to be that feel that they're not supportive, upper management. What's different is how public he went with it, and then he went public again after ESPN said on Friday evening they were releasing the statement, they were going to handle things internally. That was all they were going to comment on it, and then Monday popped, McAfee's at it again. That's what surprised me. Not necessarily he was on air, but that he doubled down and still said he didn't take anything back from what he said about Norby Williamson. That's eye-opening, because now who's the next person to speak their mind about what's going on anywhere? And if you have the pool of McAfee, you can do that. But, I mean, it's not like he is one of the highest paid. He's not the highest paid. Stephen A. Smith's about to be. But look at what Aikman's making, and the whole crew as part of their football lineup. I mean, it's and the layoffs they just had. I'm fascinated to see the about face that ESPN is taking with this, because on one hand, Jimmy Kimmel's ripping Aaron Rodgers last night on his late night show. Rodgers is going on McAfee today. McAfee then rips one of his executives about leaking false ratings information, and he's not turning away from it. The story only goes away when McAfee stops talking about it, because no one else is talking about it except for him, and they're allowing him to.
Last thing for you. I got to thank the Titans. Although I didn't like the whole idea of them wearing the Oilers uniforms against the Texans. Okay. They came and brought it against Jacksonville, and they gave the Texans the AFC South.
I'm stunned that Here's what happened. Jacksonville didn't want it. I was at the game. It was that's a bad Titans team. I mean, you watched this team a couple times this year at least. Texans are legit. I love watching C.J. Stroud. I like what DeMeco Ryans has done. Young team that I feel like is a year ahead. Probably like the first Bengals playoff run. But Trevor Lawrence is supposed to be in this certain shelf, and he's just not there. He's playing with a bum shoulder. That certainly played a factor in everything. The entire team, though, just had this kind of malaise, going through the motions, win and in, and they lose and they know they're out. And it was just kind of a neutral feeling post-game. It was bizarre. Meanwhile, there's who knows what's going to happen with Vrabel and the Titans. And the Houston Texans are going back to the playoffs as the AFC South champs when all of us, I thought they were in rebuild mode, trading up to the number 2 pick, or number 3 pick after selecting C.J. Stroud at number 2. They get Will Anderson. And then all of a sudden, first-time head coach, here they are in the postseason. That's a great sign for a team that also has a lot of free agency money come March.
Jonathan, I might be the problem. I cover the Texans, and they went south. The Rockets went south. I come to Texas A&M, and our football team goes south. So, it's on me.
Hey, at least you're headed in the right direction. The team here in Nashville's not. It's going south.
Yeah,
it's going south quickly. So we've got the Love You Blue. We've got the Columbia Blue. Right now, you've got the AFC South crown, and you've got the quarterback. That's for sure. Will Levis versus C.J. Stroud right now is not much of a fight.
I appreciate you, brother. We'll talk to you soon, all right?
Yeah, man. Always enjoy being on.
Thank you very much.